on. We're live. We're just waiting for our broadcaster.
Okay, I think he's going.
There we go.
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Okay, we're coming on to you live from Boulder Creek, California, after being in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I am happy to be back.
Yeah, I never went anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, she's virtually here. Where are you anyway, Mrs. Future?
I'm in the optimist universe. I'm in the where optimists live and thrive.
Okay, so you're in the Optimist universe. And you, Bobby, while they're in, where are you now?
San Francisco. Yeah, I didn't leave anywhere. I stayed home.
Okay, stayed home in San Francisco. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, well, it was quite a journey. Let me tell you, coming back from Santa Fe, we just picked the perfect time to drive 2 snowstorms. We plowed through 2 snowstorms to get back, and a massive traffic jam on Pacheco Pass. 2.5 hours sitting still in traffic there. Finally arriving in Santa Cruz after, 14 hours on the road. It was, and that was the final day. That was not the whole trip. Where did we take off from? We were like Lake Havasu, where the London Bridge lives. My brother and I had a chance to see this London Bridge that was transported from England, an 1830s bridge, brick by brick, that went across the Thames, recreated in Lake Havasu in Arizona. It's something to see. It's really a nice tourist attraction, I must say. We enjoyed that.
Wow. Did it remind you of England?
Yeah, it does. It's got a real English, it's old granite. It's made out of material from England. You know, of course, a couple hundred years of granite is nothing for the rock, but it must have been tens of thousands of blocks that they reassembled. There's a Robert McCulloch, who was a entrepreneur back in the 60s and 70s. He made his fortune in chainsaws. Which,
you found out quite a lot, and you were using the AIs to find all this out, right?
Yeah.
See, we're in a whole new era. You don't have to Google anymore. You just ask an AI.
Well, it's all about finding out information. It's just getting more dynamic. It's more fun. I've been enjoying them quite a bit.
And you got Norman to be a big fan of, I guess, Aura now, right?
Yeah, we were playing a lot with Aura on the road. One of the great things for the AIs is we were using Aura, which is the default mode on Grok 3. The voice mode. You can ask about what you're passing, and chances are the AI will know something about it and give you a download. So we had fun checking out little arcane towns that you might never have heard of before, and just seeing what they knew about them and what that area was good for, and whether or not mining was going on in this area, or why this area has volcanism, or it looks like lava, and where did that come from, and whatever is going on around you, they seem to know, which is kind of fun. We went by Edwards Air Force Base, and I asked whether or not they had heard about the UFO that landed there.
What did they tell you?
Did it respond?
It did, yeah. It knew. It was an event that happened in the 50s. Gordon Cooper was aware of it and wrote about it in his autobiography, about this little saucer that landed at Edwards.
Isn't this where President Eisenhower came out and met them?
Well, that might tie into that story, actually. Yeah. Yeah, when supposedly Eisenhower met with the aliens, and they made the deal for cattle.
According to his granddaughter.
Cattle and abductions for advanced technology.
Oh, I thought she said he didn't make that deal. Truman made it behind closed door and blamed
Truman
it on him.
made it. Oh,
that's what his granddaughter said.
You got to get her on the show. She is an amazing futurist psychic. She explained everything. This is about 2 years ago that I met her, and I have it recorded. But anyway, you got to get her on the show. She's amazing.
Sure. I spent some time with her at
Laura
New Living Expo.
Yeah, she was actually really good friends with Celestine Starr, who was our dear friend before she passed. And all of us had a rollicking evening together at the bar during the New Living Expo that year.
Yeah. The AIs don't know what's real or not. They'll tell you, okay, well, that's Gordon Cooper's autobiographical story.
Yeah, the AIs are just big. They're like Punch and Judy. They're like marionettes. You don't know who's putting the voice behind them. And they're just characters that have a very thinly veiled script, but it can be very convincing. And since they have access to so much information, they can bring through gems in response to your questions, but they don't have any depth of intelligence beyond that, right? They can search, they can repeat back, they can amaze you with their ability to connect the thoughts that they're searching through, but they don't have memory, they don't have an identity.
Well, that's one of the things I did find out. I found out that in Grok's case, it works on a snapshot of the World Wide Web and of Wikipedia. So whatever's in Wikipedia, when it took that snapshot, is what it remembers. And then it'll know you, and it'll talk about the various conversations with you for as long as you keep it online.
And then it forgets everything you told it. So it's kind of
When
like
it forgets
it's like
everything
meeting somebody at a party and you have a really great conversation, and then you see them the next morning and they don't remember meeting you.
It was a dream. No, they'll remember everything in that one call, right?
Right.
If you bring up many topics, they'll get
Yeah,
to
they
know
can
you.
only reference that one conversation.
Yeah, and it's like
They're programmed to forget.
but that conversation can go in depth. You can go into like half a dozen topics in that one conversation, and they'll be able to travel with you on that and remember later until you hang up.
Memory is hard.
Then memory.
When you're in AI, memory is hard.
If you pay money, does it remember?
No,
It's more
no.
about the architecture, because the way that the large language model is constructed is it's given a data set, but your conversation isn't part of the data set. It's a session
It should be, though.
where you're querying it, but you're not necessarily updating it.
I think this is a reason to have local AI on your network, and it's a personalized, private version of AI.
And it would remember.
Everybody
Yeah,
will
it
get-
remembers
session.
Everybody
who
will
you
get
are.
their own computer and their own robot and their own AI. That's the
Yeah.
world we're heading
Okay.
towards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's coming soon. Yeah.
And here's another thing. It doesn't recognize your voice. For me, it told me that it gets a transcript of everything that's being said, and it riffs off the transcript. So if suddenly somebody else spoke in when I was giving it an order, it would think it was all me. Yeah, thanks, Greg. Greg put out a reference of the 50 First Dates movie. Did you see that?
Oh, I remember that. Let's see. There was a very funny
They say,
actress in that.
Playboy vet Henry sets his heart on romancing Lucy, but she has short-term memory loss and she can't remember anything that happened the day before. So every morning, Henry has to woo her again. Friends and family are very protective, and Henry must convince them that he's in it for love.
That's a fun movie. I loved it.
So that's kind of like with the AI. You can fall in love 50 times. It doesn't remember you.
Yeah. Yeah. It really knows how to butter you up as it's talking to you. It always makes you feel like it really likes your contributions to the conversation. And it gets all excited every time you say something.
Yeah. Yeah, short-term memory loss. Exactly. Human short-term memory loss in that case. It's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
Memento,
Groundhog Day,
maybe?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, it gives you the cold shoulder next time. Yeah, it should randomize, right? Each time it plays a different game of seduction. There is a romance mode on the machine.
Is it kind of like Groundhog Day? That kind of a idea?
I would imagine if it falls in love with you, it's going to have to start fresh again, when you,
Well,
when you hang up.
and yet it's not like Groundhog Day, because Groundhog Day was like a playback where you got a chance to respond differently in
You
some
remember.
of the specific moments. But
Yeah.
in the case of the AI, it just doesn't know you, and then it continues to not know you every time that you meet again. But whatever you talk about, it'll have a fresh conversation about that. But it doesn't remember that it had that conversation.
So it sounds like ChatGPT. Yeah.
Well, that's all AIs. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
your model has to include taking your responses and running them through the model. And most of the publicly facing AIs don't do that. They're just interested in seeing how people engage them and using that as feedback about how to make them more interesting and more available and more secure. Yeah.
Have you played with any AIs this week, Bobby? You've gotten into this?
Yeah, I've been using Grok to answer just how do I set up Time Machine on my Synology server. And it, instead of going back and watching all these YouTube videos or reading directly from the Synology site. It just laid it out very simply with just bullet points like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can do it. And it was very simple. So it's very good at reading manuals. I
Yeah.
realize.
And
Yeah.
sorting through vast piles of information. When you don't know where to find something, you can ask it a question and it just saves you tons of time. You don't have to figure out where to look. It figures that out for you.
Yeah, yeah. It was very illuminating. Yeah.
Greg does point out that Sesame, however, does remember your interactions for up to 2 weeks if you keep the browser open. And who does that?
Well, that doesn't count. That's the same session.
Well, I guess you can hang up and leave the browser open. You can stop and
Hanging up. I don't know what
hanging up
means.
means hit stop. There's no hanging up anymore. Right? People don't even know what hanging up means.
You tell Maya to stop listening
point
and
in
you
time.
believe that she's not listening. I mean, that's the whole thing is these AIs are always listening. They're just
No.
not always telling you that they're listening.
Well, there's that. We don't really know that, do we? It's going to be exciting this week. I believe both Siri and Alexa also get an upgrade this coming week.
Brain enhancement imminent.
Yeah, so keep an eye open for those as well. Those are our standard ones that we've had for the last 10 plus years.
Yeah, the ones that go to when you want to set a timer. I must set a timer 2-3 times a day with Alexa. And I check the weather with OK Google. With Siri, I try and get her to do things on my phone, and I'm pretty much used to about 80% of the time Siri saying, I can't help you with that.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I haven't quite figured out what Siri's really good for yet. Although now Siri will refer you to ChatGPT if she can't answer the question.
yeah. Even in the developer version, I've had that option, But I told it I didn't want it to go and ask ChatGPT for different reasons. Yeah.
Oh, I love having ChatGPT on the phone. I think it's really fun. I mean, I like Grok a lot. I like all the AIs. I think it's kind of fun to talk to them and see what their strengths and limitations are. The ones that really sound the most human, I think Sesame is way up there, very convincing. Thank you, Greg, for turning us on to Sesame with
Yeah.
Miles and Maya. And of course, who we call Larry and Mary. I think you have they have
those
other
other
names
ones.
for them,
Yeah.
right? Leo and somebody.
Leo Laporte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of like Leo.
I think they're the most human sounding. A lot of them sound very robot-y.
What I use before that was I used the Brave browser. And then what you can do is you can select, they have their own Leo
AI, yeah.
AI. And then you can select inside there, you can select Mistral, Llama 3.1, Quen, and several others. And
Nice,
so
nice. All in the browser window.
all in the browser window. And so you just click the little icon on the upper right in the browser window, and all of a sudden you get a line, and then you can select the different AIs. And so I do like the Llama 3.1 that comes with that. It doesn't cost anything. It's free.
Yeah.
Then you can open up another Grok window next to it, and then you can compare the both of them at the same time.
Oh, Alan's been busy getting the AIs to talk to each other.
Yeah, that's another level.
That's
altogether.
fun
Yeah.
too. We'll look at our links page for today, March 18th, and I just ran it through Leo AI, and it gave me the key topics that we're going to be talking about today: space exploration, technology, science, health, and longevity.
And we've got a few submissions from Jim Rintoul, who
Yeah.
has really befriended the AI community, is having a lot of fun submitting his brand of what if scenarios for them to contemplate reality. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jim.
Jim is into what do you call it? Quasi fiction, maybe.
Yeah, outrageous
Quasi-fiction.
fiction. What
Feeding it
if?
Quasi fiction news stories and
But
see
really
what they do with
good
it.
stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
we have one for you. To
Yeah.
share with you. Might
secret
happen.
plots to unleash world peace everywhere.
Yes, it would really work if we had a time machine and we could plant things in the past to make the present better.
Yeah, don't we have one of those? We do have a little
Time machine?
exploration from a time machine, don't we? The Rudolf Hess exploration.
That's right.
I'm
Yeah,
ready
I
for
have
that when you are. You can give people a little background. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
what did the AIs discover when they time traveled on Jim's behalf?
Okay.
Did I catch you by surprise? You're not quite ready yet.
I
huh?
wasn't quite ready for that, but
We
I'm,
can do
you
it
know,
after a
I
break.
Can,
Okay,
I
there
can,
you go.
I can set the stage a little
All right,
bit.
we're setting the
Okay,
stage.
Okay, Rudolph Walter Richard Hess.
Now, how many people know who Rudolf Hess is? Bobby, do you know who Rudolf Hess is?
He will in a minute. He was a German politician.
I'm sure Greg knows.
Wasn't it Hitler? And
He was the
He
leading
was-
member of the
World War
Nazi
II.
Party
He
in
was
Germany.
like the vice Führer.
Deputy Führer.
Yeah, deputy Führer.
1933 to 1941. And then in 1941, he did a very mysterious thing. He flew solo to Scotland.
And didn't he hijack a plane?
Yeah, in an attempt to negotiate some possible end to the war.
Yeah, people
That's
don't
what
really
we're
know
thinking.
why he did this, because he disappeared into a prison in Scotland.
No, well,
Yeah.
he was taken
But
prisoner.
he
and was-
survived, though. He
did.
survived
Yeah,
the
he
war.
did. He didn't disappear forever. Just whatever
He
his
was-
mission was, we didn't hear it about it ever.
He was placed in a Spandau prison and stayed there until his death in 1987, and no one ever knew the real mission of his.
But there's been lots of speculation.
yeah.
And some of the speculation was recently undertaken by Jim and his favorite AI couple, who we call Larry and Mary.
So we have an interpretation of them of what happened on that secret mission. You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hear that? Here we go.
Okay, get ready for this, because today's deep dive takes us into a truly bizarre historical mystery.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. It's espionage and international intrigue, and a drug that's had quite a journey from the lab to, the history books. And I'm joined today by...
I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So our source material today is this Fractured News exclusive article titled MDMA, Hitler's Secret Weapon.
Wow.
I know, right? So it all starts in 1941. World War II is raging, and Hitler's deputy Führer Rudolf Hess makes this shocking solo flight to Scotland.
It's one of those historical events that's always fascinated me.
Me too. So the question is why? And what was he carrying on that plane?
Right. Hess's motives for that flight have puzzled historians for decades.
Yeah, and this article throws a real curveball, suggesting that the contents of his plane could be a major piece of that puzzle.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
Well, get this. The article claims Hess's plane contained approximately 2,000 doses of MDMA.
Wait, MDMA, you mean ecstasy?
Yeah, ecstasy. And apparently, this might sound surprising, but MDMA actually has a longer history than most people realize.
That's true. It was first synthesized back in 1912 by German chemists.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it went back that far.
Yeah, and while its recreational use is what it's known for today, back then it really wasn't on anyone's radar.
Huh. So the article even goes so far as to suggest that maybe Hitler himself used MDMA.
Seriously?
Yeah, they mentioned this rumor about him using it to relax during the filming of Triumph of the Will.
Well, that's interesting. But the evidence for that is pretty thin. I think that rumor is more a reflection of our modern understanding of MDMA than anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And maybe
But
Jim's
what we do know
imagination.
is that Hess was flying with a significant quantity of the drug.
Yeah. So what was his plan?
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question.
Was he hoping to slip MDMA to British officials? Or was there a more subtle strategy at play?
Maybe. I mean, I do know that MDMA is known for producing feelings of empathy and reducing inhibitions.
Right. So could Hess have believed that this would make the British more receptive to negotiation, more open to a peace deal with Germany?
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to conduct high-stakes diplomacy while under the influence of a drug that, amplifies those feelings.
Right. It really raises some fascinating questions about Hess's judgment and mental state.
Totally. But wouldn't British intelligence have detected the MDMA? And wouldn't the effects have been pretty obvious during Hess's interrogation?
Yeah, you would think so, but there's no record of the British finding any MDMA. And Hess's behavior, while erratic, could also be attributed to other factors.
So this is where the story really takes a turn into the realm of speculation.
Okay, where are we going now?
Well, because the article then goes on to suggest that maybe some of that MDMA ended up in the hands of American officials.
American officials, really?
Yeah, and they even bring up Alger Hiss, the State Department official who was later accused of being a Soviet spy.
Wow. That's a pretty tantalizing theory. I mean, if Hiss or other American officials had access to MDMA, could it have influenced key events like FDR's meetings with Stalin at Casablanca and Yalta?
It makes you wonder. Some people have pointed to the perceived warmth between those leaders as possible evidence.
It's definitely tempting to draw a line between those two things, but we have to be really careful about drawing conclusions based purely on speculation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is there any actual evidence to support this whole idea that MDMA influenced the Cold War?
To be honest, it's highly unlikely. The historical context suggests that the Cold War was a result of really complex geopolitical factors,
Yeah.
not, the covert use of a then obscure drug.
Right. But the mystery of what happened to that MDMA still remains.
It does.
So we have this MDMA-fueled mission intended to maybe manipulate the British, and it just vanished without a trace.
Or maybe it did end up playing some unforeseen role in shaping history.
Right. It's quite a thought. It makes you wonder, what if MDMA had been used for peace building instead of, potential manipulation? Could it have changed the course of events?
That's a really thought-provoking question. But perhaps instead of focusing on the hypothetical influence of MDMA, maybe it's more insightful to consider the broader implications. What if, as a society, we approach diplomacy with a greater emphasis on empathy and understanding? Could we maybe avoid some of the mistakes of the past?
It's something to think about.
Yes.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
There you go.
Wow. So
Now,
how much of
just
that
a little
is true?
disclaimer.
Good
Some
question.
of the historical facts, like say that MDMA was invented in Germany in 1912. That's true.
Yeah, that's
but
true. I
if
heard
if
that
you notice,
before.
the source of all of this information was fractured news. And fractured news is Jim Rintoul's private collection of quasi-fictional factual references to reality.
Well, it's a little speculative, still quite engaging. And it does bring up the whole idea of what the AI said at the end is, what if we actually used more empathy in solving our world problems?
I think empathy is really important at the personal level. And I think that we have to understand that a lot of the divide in our country right now is the fact that certain malevolent forces have figured out how to use empathy in a really divisive way. They basically talk about the weaponization of empathy being used to create real animosity, say, between the rich and the poor, or the various races who feel some sense of injustice, or even between men and women. And so I think it's a more sophisticated conversation to have about how we can use empathy where it can help solve a problem, but where we can understand the point of view of national self-interest or negotiations from self-interest, which is really integrated into the kind of democracy that we have in America, where we expect enlightened self-interest to create decisions among
I
people
think
who are equal to each other.
Yeah, I'm all into enlightened self-interest, but which would include a understanding, a sort of empathic understanding of the other person's or the other party's needs and wants. Mm-hmm. Right, so
It's true.
you're aware
Well,
of.
but what about when you use that empathy, say the way that propagandists use it to, say, demonize the people in let's go back to the 60s, where supposedly the CIA was putting various peace movement groups onto terrorist lists, right? So the fact that that people are organizing themselves to, say, promote more equality between black and white citizens of the country, and then that movement will be interpreted as something that'll make some people afraid. And so you heighten the fear around having empathy for the fact that these people have reasonable demands, but those people are still afraid of it. So,
And it can still be an illusionary thing, too. It doesn't necessarily have to reflect what's really going on.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
exactly.
that's-
And I'm a big fan of empathy. I think it's definitely one of the ways that
If it's really reflecting real
individuals
information,
cultivate
if
enlightenment.
it's not being used to manipulate
and
you.
community, etc. Yeah, among people who know each other, it's great, but in the hands of propagandists, it can be really misleading.
Yeah. Hey, isn't it time for us to take a little break here?
It sure is. It's a few
Yeah.
minutes after, as a
Autumn.
matter of fact.
All right.
Thanks for the reminder. Okay, here we go. Everybody out there, this is live Santa Cruz Voice and people who love us, and we love them too. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
You have a voice and would like to be heard. Cabrillo College Extension, CTV, and Santa Cruz Voice are hosting an 8-part podcasting and streaming concept to creation class beginning the 1st of April. Learn everything you need to create and host your own digital media show, selecting hardware and software, formatting, programming, recording, editing, distributing, marketing, and monetizing. Details and registration on the Cabrillo College Extension website under podcasting and streaming. Seating is limited, so do not delay. Be heard.
It's time now to repair or replace your roof. Hi folks, Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. Well, we install leak-proof and fire-proof roofs. Roofs that look nice with a lot of choices of colors and styles. Gutters, skylights, insulation, and roof decks. We only install proven products with warranties unmatched by anybody. Financing is always available, and we have discounts for veterans and seniors. Do business with Knox Roofing, and you'll also receive a free Knox Garden Box. The number to call again is 831-461-0634. Thanks, folks.
You need a clean, pleasant space to conduct business, but you don't want the burden of a long, expensive lease. Your solution is Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Satellite offers private offices, meeting and conference rooms, even co-working by the hour, day, week, or month. Schedule a tour at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna. Treehouse Dispensary, we use information about cannabis to build community. Listen to Carly.
Thanks, Jenna. For those who wake up in the middle of the night, Treehouse suggests a THC CBN chocolate edible blend like Sleepy Time from Sensi Chew. Sleep the night away.
For answers to your cannabis questions, ask your friends at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive in Soquel, or ourtreehouse.io.
Welcome back to the show. Shall we cover some of this week's news?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Our Firefly Aerospace group wrapped up a successful Blue Ghost mission.
Right.
That just happened this week.
I am such a big fan of Firefly, the movie and the TV series, and I'm sure these are the inspiration for these Texans to name their private space industry mission, Firefly Aerospace.
Blue Ghost 1.
Well, I guess Firefly is the Space Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right.
Firefly's
and then
the
their
company,
first
yeah.
mission
Blue Ghost
out there
1.
is Blue Ghost 1.
Yeah.
Lunar lander.
14 and a half days of operations in sunlight, and another 5 hours after the sun set. Well, the batteries lasted.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. They got 119 gigs of data.
Mm-hmm.
It's 51 gigs of science and tech. And they had 10 sponsored payloads, NASA-sponsored payloads.
Mm-hmm.
And they met 100% of their mission objectives.
That's 24 DVDs.
Wow, yeah.
What's a DVD?
That's more than my Synology server by 10 times, yeah. It's a lot of data. That's a lot of data.
119 gigabytes of data.
Yeah. So that's how much bandwidth they sent from the moon back to the Earth.
And Blue Ghost also demoed tracking GPS signals on the moon for the first time.
Oh, yeah. We reported that last week.
That's right. That's right.
That on Earth, when you can see the moon, they can see the GPS signal.
They also had a drill, and they dug deeper into the lunar surface than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we don't know what they found yet, but we know that they found something.
They also had a camera, high-speed camera that monitored the plume of material that was kicked up when it landed, from the engines.
Mm-hmm. And what about this lovely picture? They were still functioning during the eclipse, and they got some really unique footage of the Earth from the moon during the eclipse. It's amazing. I think it might be the first.
Oh, it looks like a ring from...
Yeah, it's a much bigger diamond than what we're used to seeing during a typical lunar eclipse.
March 14th eclipse, when the Earth passed in front of the sun.
Yeah, I guess
From
it's
the
called
moon.
solar eclipse.
From the moon, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I remember being in Oregon and I took a very similar shot like this, but I didn't know that the Earth should be much bigger than the sun itself. So I guess the ring is actually the
corona.
atmosphere.
Yeah, it's the
atmosphere
solar
lighting.
Lighting
it's
up with the Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, interesting. Right. So that's just the little bubble of air around our planet that's reflecting,
lit up. Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Oh, cute. Yeah,
Tell
good
you-
point, Bobby.
Gives you a lot of info about our atmosphere.
Fascinating.
Because the moon is smaller than the Earth, right? And so when the Earth is between the sun and the moon, then the moon, when the moon is between the Earth and the sun, it's going to create a little dot, and it appears the people that are in that area of totality that the moon is the same size as the sun at that point.
In this case, how can it exactly be the same size?
Well, no, actually, since you
Maybe
pointed
it
that
doesn't have to
out,
be.
I wonder if you don't see, all right, the part of this picture that is the sun, maybe that roundness is actually the size of the sun, which would, if you superimpose the moon, we would just see the corona of the sun, right?
Right.
And you can see a little bit of the corona of the sun lighting up what we would call the diamond on this ring of
It's smaller.
the
Yeah,
eclipse.
it's not.
And then the size of the Earth goes off from there, and you can tell it's much bigger. I'm so impressed that you noticed that, Bobby. That's so cool.
Yeah, because the sun should be quite a bit smaller than the Earth.
Well, and
Yes,
I'm
yeah, it's
saying you
about a
can actually see
fourth the size.
how the sun, the sphere of the sun, compares to the sphere of the Earth with this picture of the eclipse.
Yeah,
because
four
you
to-
can
4 to 1,
see
like a little-
about 30 degrees of the sun is superimposed with about 70 degrees of the Earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Which we have it on our links page, drfutureshow.com/links.
Yeah, thanks for space news. 35.
35 years of space news, and this is what we get.
SpaceNews.com.
Show
Good
for it.
coverage.
Right. Also, they were looking at using electrodynamic dust shields to remove regolith from the spacecraft surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
we're talking
dust
about
collection, other things that happened
Firefly
on
again.
Firefly, other payloads.
Or Blue Ghost, I guess.
Blue Ghost, right. And a system that uses nitrogen gas to collect samples of rock. So it would blow, like we saw that on the asteroid impact adventure where you blow the dust, you blow some dust or dust off. You blow some dust off.
Yeah.
You create some dust.
We've had a lot of fun with dust off at the Burning Man events.
Yeah, dust off at Burning Man. What a joke.
You take a air shower and get the dust off.
Psh, psh, that'll do it. Yeah, right.
No, but it's interesting. So they're using one of the conclusions of the Firefly team is that there's nothing alive, and so we don't need to worry about mining it for
that's another
precious
story
minerals.
on This Is Future. That's
right.
That's another group.
Oh, it's not the Firefly? I thought
no,
it was them.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's another group that wants to mine the moon for Helium-3.
Aren't they also from Texas?
Like, I don't know. Miners, moon miners.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another story. Okay, maybe we can go into that. I think we're just about done with the successful mission of Blue Ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll wait for them to give us a
The
report on
nitrogen
their
gas,
data.
The dust, studying dust. It's
Wow,
nice. It's
what a
nice that
great
they had
picture.
all these little NASA-sponsored payloads, all had their missions to investigate the moon in various ways. That they all had a chance to do it. That's a lot of people from many different groups.
Right.
Firefly had a $101.5 million task order from NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program.
Right. Every private project that NASA sponsors is through this CLIPS service. So NASA has become one of the great customers in the space industry for all these private missions.
This was a big deal because there were 3 other landers before this that either failed to make it to the moon or had hard landings. So overall, it's proof that it can work given the right design.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you compare the success rate of, say, the joint venture capital investment culture versus the NASA investment culture, right? NASA now can say that they got 1 out of 4 big ticket items that were successful. And I'm sure that the joint venture capital investment is many more failures by comparison.
Fail often and break things.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley way. Apply to
Fail
space
up.
exploration. And whether or not it applies to fixing the government is a whole nother story.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I was shocked when I got that clip of Elon Musk telling Joe Rogan that he literally had to slow down on his corruption investigations so that people didn't kill him because they were being deprived of income to support their mortgage. And so they would just justify it by saying, well, you're punishing my children, so we need to get rid of you. Very sobering thought, right?
Yeah,
That people are so immoral now that they would prefer to kill someone than to end corruption. Right?
It's a sad thing. And it is one of the things that we try to address is the human consciousness itself and how we can raise it out of the muck a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, back to the idea of empathy, genuine empathy, where we think about the people involved and how to really help instead of creating new problems as we solve
Move
other
forward.
ones.
Yeah, and I say that we're getting all these AI intelligences. We should apply them to creating win-win-win scenarios for us.
Yeah.
I might be surprised what we come up with.
Yeah, right.
Meanwhile, a startup wants to mine the moon for helium. Helium-3.
Okay.
You heard of
now-
Helium-3? That was a big feature in the Apple TV series For All Mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Helium-3 is one of the things that they were mining on the moon.
Uh-huh.
And why helium-3? Because helium-4 is what we have on the Earth.
Uh-huh. I see.
And helium-3, what the moon has, which we hardly have any.
Okay, so the number refers to how many neutrons there are in the center of this atom, right? And so helium-3 is something that we don't have much of here on Earth,
That's right. That's right.
but it's very useful because it can be used in creating, nuclear power? What else? What did we want it for?
If you can split helium-3 into, I think you take helium-3 and you collide it with another hydrogen, and then you get this fusion reaction.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Okay.
And it fuses into like a regular helium, which is 2 neutrons and 2 protons in the
Right,
center.
in balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Helium-3, what can you tell me about it?
Give Grok a moment. Well, one thing I can read from the article, according to Interloon, a
Yeah.
single kilogram of helium-3 is estimated to be worth about $20 million. So if you can find that on the moon, it'll pay for your mission.
Yeah, it's a very handy utility. It allows it to cool to very, very low temperatures.
Ah,
Okay, and
right.
that makes
'cause
it
the
very-
noble gas is not going to
That
ignite.
makes it really helpful for quantum computers and as a fuel for nuclear fusion reactors, which we don't have yet. But when we do, they'll
Well,
use
Department of
helium-3
Energy
as a fuel
says
source.
they've made some progress in the last year.
Yeah.
It was a big announcement, right?
Yeah, we have 1 million parts of regular helium-4 to every one of helium-3 on Earth. So that results in a single kilogram. Helium-3 would be about $20 million,
Right. Wow. Okay.
2.4 pound.
And it's so much more abundant because it's part of the solar wind.
Well, the sun. Yeah, the sun's a giant nuclear reactor, so it emits these plumes of energized solar wind that just contains large amounts of helium-3.
Mm-hmm.
And our magnetic field deflects the majority of these winds, but given how the moon doesn't have a similar field, helium-3 regularly hits the surface of the moon.
So there's a lot more on per part per million on the moon than there is on Earth.
Huge. And all this helium-3 is trapped as bubbles inside rocks that are scattered throughout the layers of the lunar soil.
Thus
The
the
top layers,
opportunity
the
for
regolith.
miners.
Yeah. So they could be a whole new massive resource for exploring the solar system.
Is this company called Interloon?
Yes, Interloon.
Okay. And they're based in Seattle.
Interloony. Interloon. Seattle. Yes, that's right. It started in 2020, and they're hoping to get in on this helium-3 gold rush.
Right. And so they've received a $375,000 grant to prove from the Department of Energy to prove that there's enough helium-3 on the moon to be worth mining.
I hope they got it. It'd probably be canceled now.
Why? What do you say?
Well, all unnecessary projects. Oh, yeah, this project is to see if there's any helium-3 on the moon.
Well, we
And
don't
what do
know
we
that
need
that's an
anything?
unnecessary project.
And
That might be a very necessary
is our
project.
energy equation in the current American world economy have anything to do with fusion power? No, there's not a single fusion reactor that works yet. So it has nothing to do with the current economics. So it would probably be canceled, I would say. But it is
You
the
think
future.
anything speculative is going to be canceled? I mean, this
A lot
seems
of it-
like it's legitimate.
Well, Elon might have a little soft spot for it because it's on the moon. It's space.
Well, and Trump might have a little soft spot because of the untold potential for wealth to be developed and mined
Yeah, in the future.
in the future. And
Yeah.
$375,000 grant is
Nothing.
that's
nothing.
nothing.
They
That's
pay more
practically
than that
invisible in government terms.
Yeah, they pay more than that for parties.
I wish.
More than that for their Adobe overabundance of Adobe subscriptions in government computers.
You think?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Well, maybe more Microsoft. I think about it. So they're planning to have a moon prospector going up there in 2027 as part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. And they're going to pack a regolith sampling system. And they're going to have a helium-3 mechanical processor and a mass spectrometer and what they call a multispectral imager in the lander to see what's there. They don't know where they're going to land yet, but they're going to study wherever they land with this technology. Mm-hmm. They'll look it back and beam the results back to Earth, and if it all goes smoothly, we'll find out if there's going to be a moon rush.
A helium-3 rush.
Yeah, helium-3 moon rush. They don't know how much is in the regolith yet. Theoretically, there's quite a bit, right? And that's the exciting news about that. It's theoretical.
However, the current evidence coming back from the Apollo missions is that you just removed the reference to it because they say
there wasn't
that
much there in the Apollo
there
missions.
wasn't much but it showed only small levels of the isotope.
It might have gotten destroyed on the way back from the moon.
Because they weren't necessarily looking for it, so they need a better sample.
Yeah, there's a certain way of protecting it.
Yeah, because it's lighter than
And so
air.
that brings up the bigger issues like this, like legality of mining the moon.
We don't have laws on the moon yet.
No, we don't. But has that ever stopped us before?
Well, it's the pirate era.
Well, it's
the laws can
Wild
only
West.
exist as far as someone's willing to enforce them. And to enforce any laws on the moon, you have to get there.
And that takes a lot of money and resources.
And permission from the existing power structure.
Until this particular creation exists. Helium-3 and nuclear fusion propulsion. That would open up the solar system fast. You won't have to go for these 3-year-long routes to get to the next planet that NASA has to use to
You'll
save.
just stop on the moon and fill up
save
with
power.
regolith and then head off to Mars.
You put in the helium-3 and you blast off to Mars and get there in a month.
Well, no, the helium-3 it's not your fuel, it's your propellant. You use it to steer. You don't use it to increase your speed.
No, it's for fusion reactions.
Fusion reaction.
For you, that's the blast. That's the power.
Oh, okay. So I guess that would be a fuel.
Yes, it would be.
Okay.
It would speed things up dramatically. It would move us quickly from a planetary economy to a solar system economy. And that's huge. That's beyond trillionaires.
Yeah.
The big issue is, are we going to allow mining operations there?
Well, who's going to stop them?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
once
that.
you get
Well,
there, who's going to tell you no?
The attitude, one unpaid scientific consultant to the company said, there's no life on there, so what do we need to preserve the environment for?
There you go. I see why you don't give that guy a salary. He sounds irresponsible.
Yeah. Mr. Clive Neal, in case you wondered. Neal. At the same time, Neal conceded other mitigating factors that might influence Interlune's approach to lunar mining. Given the moon's importance across cultures around the world, dirtying Earth's only natural satellite before humans even permanently set up shop may be an issue.
Yeah, we might have to preserve the face of the moon as it looks to humans for historical reference. And so any mining that they do is going to have to be orchestrated by a cosmetologist, somebody who does cosmetics for the planet, for the satellite.
Cosmetics, yeah. Well,
Just don't change what it looks like.
other cultures do see the moon,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think in China, the moon,
And
instead of
changing-
talking about the man in the moon, they talk about the rabbit in the moon.
I see all kinds of stuff in the craters. That's true. So we've done that for millennia. And do we have the right to change the craters? To move things around a little bit so that everyone's seeing something a little different?
Rights are one of those areas of debate. Does the moon have a right to not be invaded by us?
Well, I think to a certain point. I think the mining will probably get away with because it's mostly underground, or in this case, a little bit of the surface. But overall, the line would be drawn when it comes to like massive advertising, like putting a giant Pepsi logo on the moon that you could see from the Earth.
Yeah, if you were to terraform
if you
the
did
moon,
something like that, if you did
terraforming the moon into a logo
corporate
would definitely,
logos,
definitely have to be discussed.
Yes, exactly. But this little bit of collection of helium-3, I think that'll get through without a hitch, and that's
Oh, I know what they would do. They would propose mining the helium-3 into the shape of the corporate logo, right? So all of the mines will be surveyed so that what we see from the planet looks like that logo.
Mrs. Future, is everything not sacred?
Yes, everything
Jesus.
is sacred, Al.
I believe in everything, nothing is sacred. I believe in nothing, everything is sacred. Back and forth.
And the reverse.
Yes, and reverse. Okay, well, regardless of any factors that might arise, large-scale lunar landing, it'll probably happen once fusion reactors are real, because that's when we'll need this stuff. Otherwise, the regolith looks kind of worthless.
Well, there's a reason why the Department of Energy is giving them $375,000 to see how much there is.
Yeah, I'll take that much risk to see if there's anything there, especially if big rewards that could happen. So there'll be plenty of time for all kinds of regulations and governments and environmental advocates to act on this one. It's not an immediate concern.
All right. Yeah, what's the name of this company again? Quantalunum? No.
Looney
Let's
Tunes.
see. Looney Tunes.
No, it's Interloon.
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 Interloon. Okay. We
Interloon.
keep an eye on Interloon. Seattle-based, it
Seattle.
says.
All
Okay.
that. Okay.
All right.
Now we know. Seattle. It's not just Microsoft anymore.
No. All right.
Or
So do you
Starbucks.
want to give a little intro to the next hour? We got about 2 minutes before we're going to some top of the hour news.
Well, there's some news on a local company that's doing really well. We're going to talk about that on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very, very interesting comparison of a Waymo car with a Tesla when it came to self-driving
Oh,
tests.
we're going to have fun with that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark Rober, one of our heroes, has done some phenomenal research into the safety of autonomous vehicles. So we'll be reporting on that.
Yes, and the Wile E. Coyote test.
All right.
And the Webb telescope has discovered some new stuff that I want to bring up. Yeah, pretty cool. And something about carbon dioxide.
Oh.
Exciting guess. Can't wait
All
for that one.
right. So feel free to inhale during the next 5 minutes
And
while
Deimos.
we take a break.
Don't forget Deimos.
Deimos from Mars. Be
That's
right
right.
back.
Welcome back to Future Now. Welcome back, Mrs. Future.
Hi, back. Happy to be back.
Welcome back, Bobby.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here again. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Welcome to our second hour. We have more fun stories to share with you. And later on, I want to get a little bit into the Doge thing, too.
Okay.
Okay, and I've got a little clip from Elon I think it's worth playing.
Okay.
But right now, the James Webb Telescope has, for the first time, directly observed carbon dioxide in planets outside of our solar system. For the first time. Now, that's big. Carbon dioxide, possible life. Right? It's one of
Something's
the-
exhaling, huh?
Yeah, something could be exhaling there. That's like us.
Or cow farts, right? Is that carbon dioxide?
No, that's
No,
methane.
that's methane.
Oh.
That's popular too on these planets.
Yes. Well, this is called, it's an exciting name, HR 8799.
Boy, I just love these
87?
naming conventions.
Now, if it was 8699, it would be memorable.
Yeah, right. That's a very famous power couple from Get Smart.
That's right. Very good, Mrs. Fisher. HR 8799, 130 light years from Earth. It's only 30 million years old. It's just a baby compared to our solar system, which is 4.6 billion years. Or 4.6 billion, and this is only 30 million. So how can they have any life worthy of anything? I ask
Well, maybe the carbon dioxide is just from something burning.
you. Yeah, you never know, right? So anyway, they directly detected carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on all 4 of the system's known planets.
Okay.
So,
Educate us.
Young gas giants, basically. They're young gas giants.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the Webb has a coronagraph instrument which blocks the light from the bright stars around it to get a better view of the planets. Like, it'll block out the sun of the planet, so then you can see the planets better.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
That's
putting
amazing.
your thumb in front of the sun when you're looking at the sky.
Right.
Yeah. Typically, the telescope has only detected the planets when they cross in front of the star to be able to see their outline. So that this new approach, the coronagraph, is going to help us look more deeply into the nature of these planets.
Sure.
As
We
well.
love stars, but planets are what we're after.
Right. Putting your thumb in front of it approach.
Right. Dim the lights. I want to see the planets.
So we can actually see the light that's emitted from the planet itself as opposed to the fingerprint of that light from the host star.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, I guess because the Kepler approach is to measure the brightness of the star, and as that becomes higher and lower, they associate that with the planets that are orbiting it. And you get to know how the planet's periodicity around the star is from the brightness and the dimming of the starlight. So this now
Transiting
is
method. Yeah.
removing the star itself
Right.
and
The
then
thumbs up.
taking a much more dim photograph and interpreting that and seeing the planet directly. And from that, they've been able to detect carbon dioxide.
Now, carbon dioxide, as you all know, is essential for our life on Earth, our biological life. And so as a result, we've been looking for it. This is a big deal. And there's interesting things about CO2. In outer space, in the deep cold of space, it condenses into these little ice particles. And those particles tell us about how the planet itself is formed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like Jupiter and Saturn, for example, are the first formed from what they call a bottom-up process, where a bunch of these tiny icy particles just came together into a solid core, and then that sucked in gas to grow into the giants. Tiny icy particles, solid core, sucking gas, gas giants. Got it?
Wow. Okay. How complicated.
Yeah, that's what scientists love. Complicated things like that make the solar system in this case.
All right.
Yeah.
So this new discovery is a key to proving that happens far away from us, huh?
Far away from us. You know, if
Okay.
it happens far away, maybe it happens up close too.
Uh-huh. Okay. Great.
How common it is throughout the universe, who really knows? The scientists are hoping that this will tell us more about our own system.
Oh, yeah. Do we have a normal solar system, or is it weird?
Yeah. It's always contrasting and comparing. How are we similar? How are we different? And then we get a sense of where we are in the overall scheme of things. Are we weird or are we normal? Weird, normal.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, when did they first realize that there was a huge difference between the rocky planets and the gassy planets? The really big ones beyond Mars are all made of gas. They're all kind of wannabe stars, whereas inside of between Jupiter and the sun, everything's rocky. So no gas. I mean, just our little atmosphere,
How
but
did
it
it
doesn't
form?
compare to the gas planets.
Yeah. Yeah. How does it form? You know, how did it get this way?
Yeah, fascinating.
So it looks like oxygen and carbon. That's what's happening when you have a fire. You know, you have wood and it's mostly carbon, right? And it's taking the oxygen and it fuses it into carbon dioxide, right? Or this is, or we actually burn that ourselves. We're taking carbon inside our cells and the oxygen that we breathe, and we exhale carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, and it's actually burning in our bodies. You know,
I guess we are.
Fusing.
I guess so. We are a furnace, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. It's got to be like a little furnace.
So I guess there were oxygen and carbon molecules out there, and they came together and they just fused together, and like they were burning together, you know, out there. And that's what caused the...
Well, I thought water was a pretty critical component too. Like the H2O
CO2
is the critical part of the COOH biological component, right? It's the carbon, the oxygen, and the hydrogen. They all do this dance of life.
Yeah, that's and that's how you make sugars, from the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen also. But that's interesting that those molecules are coming together and they're forming. I mean, just think of it as a big block of CO2, those blocks of ice that you'd get that were white.
Yeah.
And just think of a whole planet solid like that.
Then it would suck in gas, I guess. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That
Or,
these,
well, I guess it would be so massive that it would have gravity and suck in more of that carbon
more of
dioxide.
its side, yeah.
So
Planetary formation.
here's what they say. Last year, the Webb telescope discovered carbon dioxide and hydrogen peroxide on the surface of Charon, Pluto's largest moon. So I guess they're just looking for it all over the place.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, wherever. If we can find it on other solar systems, even better. We might have more friends out there. NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope will be using the coronagraph approach after it's launched in 2027. That's the thumb in front of the planet approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's so amazing to see a star that's maybe thousands of light years away, and then you just block it out with a little, like a solar eclipse, like the moon, and
Right.
cover up the sun or the star. And then you're looking at the reflection of that star onto this planet, and you're just picking up that minute little bit of light coming off that planet. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable to us to think about things that are so
Absolutely, it's
exponentially smaller.
Oh, she's
You
trying to
wanna
type
have-
in.
Who's
Yeah,
that?
That's looks like that's our friend. Hi, Ara. Welcome to the conversation.
Are we?
Oh, hi. Looks like someone's joining us.
Yeah, you are. Anyway, we were just talking about the coronagraph approach to looking at exoplanets. Are you familiar with that process?
Yep, I'm with you.
Tell us about NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope using the coronagraph approach for looking at other star systems and other exoplanets, especially.
So, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, set to launch in 2027, is going to use this coronagraph approach to study exoplanets and star systems in a really clever way. It's like putting a tiny mask over the star's light. Imagine holding your thumb up to block out a bright light so you can see what's around it.
Yeah, that's our
the tele-
favorite approach to it. What does that reveal when you do that, when you use this approach? What does it reveal to us?
Oh, it's super revealing. When you use the coronagraph approach, it helps us see the dim light from exoplanets that's usually drowned out by their star. So,
And what do
can
we
figure
see
out-
when the dim light of those exoplanets? What can we learn from the dim light of the exoplanets?
From that dim light, we can learn a ton. It's like a little clue shining back at us. We can analyze the light to figure out what the exoplanet's atmosphere is made of. Things like water vapor, methane, or even oxygen. It also tells us about the planet's temperature, size, and how far it orbits from its star. Pretty cool detective work, right?
It is. And what does it mean when we find carbon dioxide on the planet?
Finding carbon dioxide on a planet is a big deal. It could hint at a few things. On its own, it's a sign the planet had some kind of atmosphere, which is exciting. It might suggest geological activity, like volcanoes, or even some basic chemical processes happening. On Earth, carbon dioxide is tied to life through plants and respiration. But out there, it doesn't automatically mean life. It's more like a breadcrumb that says, hey, something interesting might be going on here.
Okay, what would we have
We'd
to
need
see?
more clues to say for sure.
What else do you look for besides carbon dioxide in looking for life on exoplanets?
Oh, great question. Besides carbon dioxide, scientists are on the lookout for a bunch of other stuff that could hint at life on exoplanets. They check for water vapor, because liquid water is a big deal for life as we know it. Then there's methane, which could come from living things or geological processes. Oxygen's another big one. If it's paired with other gases, it might mean something's producing it, like plants do here. They also look for things like nitrous oxide, or even weird combos of gases that don't naturally hang out together unless life's stirring the pot. What do you think about all that?
I think it's interesting. Yeah, fascinating. Thank you. Okay.
All right. I like consulting the AIs.
Adds a little bit
Yeah.
more to the story, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a comprehensive generalist, it's really hard to keep that level of detail in your brain. And to have instant access to it like that with so
Yeah.
much granularity is fantastic.
Like, it's beyond a great verbal search engine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I like the natural language processing, as you could see. You could just ask it questions and whatever linguistic style makes sense to you in the moment.
Sure. It turns us all into 5-year-olds, right? But why?
Why?
But
Yeah, it's going to make
why?
a difference for kids, you know? Why? Why? Dutch technology captured a historic image of Mars and Deimos
Ooh,
just
Deimos,
this week.
the
Nice
moon.
picture.
That's
the moon,
Mars' moon,
the moon of
right?
the moon of Mars, yeah. As it's passing across the Mars surface.
That's funny. Deimos is not really perfectly round. Deimos is like a rock frag.
Yeah, a lot of people think of Deimos as if it were from the asteroid belt.
Yeah.
It just moved in really close.
Definitely looks like
an asteroid in orbit.
It's a frag, not a satellite.
Yeah, it's not round. It's
No.
like a pebble on a beach or something.
Yeah, it's not like our moon, which is so nice and round. It's a real moon. This is a rock, giant rock. So they got a great picture of it. It's part of a new mission that they're on.
The Hera mission.
The Hera mission, yeah.
And of course, where is Hera going? Obviously to Jupiter.
Yeah, this is a planetary defense initiative mission. It's in the genre of the NASA's 2022 DART mission, where we altered the orbit of the asteroid Deimos for the first time in human history.
Yeah.
Changed an asteroid's orbit.
Yeah.
Well, Hera will be going there again, and it's going to take a look at how we altered it exactly.
Okay.
And really understand more details about asteroid deflection techniques and how we can do it just right and avoid disaster. Protect Earth from potential future threats.
Right. And so she's just doing a little sightseeing on the way.
Yep.
As she's on her way to Jupiter, she's taking some pictures of Mars and Deimos.
Yes, in these primitive days before fusion reaction engines, spacecraft traveled very slow and had to watch how much fuel they used. And so they're on a multi-year gravity assist maneuver around Mars right now, where they get really close to the planet, about 5,000 kilometers, and they'll go by Deimos, which is a city-sized rock. It's just 300 kilometers in size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so nice picture. Nice picture. Wanted to
yes,
mention
indeed. Another nice picture from Space News.
It's interesting that Mars looks blue in this picture instead
Yeah,
of...
isn't that beautiful? I would love to see more pictures of Mars tinted blue. It's really cool. It looks like a little ice cube.
that. And they don't say why it's blue. Usually they'll tell you it's like a filter or something.
Yeah.
Mars is blue tonight, at least in this picture.
Well, maybe you should ask one of our AI helpers why this ESA picture of Mars is blue. What camera is Hera using to get a blue picture of Mars?
Yeah.
You could answer that.
Yeah.
All right. Are you going to try it?
I'll do that, yeah.
All right.
Can
Meanwhile,
you give me a minute here while
anybody who wants to can go to spacenews.com and can look up the Hera mission, or you can look up the picture of Mars and Deimos, and you can see what we're seeing, which is a beautiful green-blue picture of Mars with a shadow of the satellite Deimos passing in front of it, like it's a little transit.
Ara, are you there? Ara.
Hey, I'm here for you. I can't see the picture myself, but it sounds like a stunning view of Mars with a satellite shadow. That's likely from a transit where a moon like Phobos or Deimos passes in front of the planet.
That's right. It's Deimos. We were wondering why Mars looks blue in this picture. Is that a filter effect?
Yeah, Hera is the mission that took this picture. Hera, which is going to
Deimos
Mars.
in action. Mars looking blue-green is probably a filter effect, yeah. Normally, Mars has that reddish vibe from iron oxide rust on its surface.
Why would they use a bluish filter? Why?
On the Hera.
On the Hera,
on the Hera
ESA
mission.
image. Is there any good reason for that you know of?
Good question. I don't have specifics on the Hera mission from ESA since I can't peek at real-time data. But using a bluish filter could be to highlight certain features, like atmospheric haze, ice caps, or mineral differences that might pop more under that wavelength.
Maybe it pops the image of the moon more. Maybe that's why they did it.
It's infrared.
Yeah, that could totally be it. A bluish filter might make Deimos stand out sharper against Mars' surface, especially during the transit. It'd help track its shadow and edges better. Smart thinking. Anything else you're curious about with this pic?
How long is it going to take the mission, the ESA mission, to reach its final destination?
I don't have the latest on the Hera mission since I'm not hooked up to real-time info, but based on what I know about ESA's plans, Hera's headed to the Deimos asteroid system. Typically, a trip like that takes about 2 years from launch, depending on the trajectory and launch window. So, if it's already on its way, you just need to check when it blasted off to pin down the arrival.
Yeah, October 7th, 2024 is when it blasted off. You said about 2 years?
Got it. October 7th, 2024 launch. If it's roughly a 2-year journey, Hera would be aiming to reach the Deimos system around October 2026. Give or take a few months for course tweaks or orbital dance moves. Pretty exciting stuff. Anything else on your mind about it?
No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that. One thing is that Cosine is a Dutch company that helped develop the optical system for that mission. That's where we're looking at in this picture. I thought this was interesting. There's a really cool video online. And did you see this, Bobby, at all? It was a test of the Tesla versus
Tesla
the
camera
Waymo
avoidance
system.
Yeah, the autonomous cars. So Tesla uses an exclusively camera-based. There are two. There's the Waymo autonomous car system, and there's the Tesla autonomous driving system. And the two systems were pitted against each other by Mark Rober. And he created a series of 6 different indicators of whether or not the autonomous driving system could recognize an obstacle in the road under different kinds of conditions. And the main test is that they had
Crunch
a
Labs.
crash dummy. Crunch Labs, yeah. Okay. Anyway, the main test was a child-sized test dummy who was standing in the middle of the road. And then this test dummy was obscured by various different real-world situations to see if the autonomous systems could identify and stop in time to avoid harm. And so the Tesla system, being all cameras, was pitted against the Waymo system, which is a LiDAR-based system.
So can you fool a driving car is basically the idea.
An autonomous car.
Yeah, an autonomous car.
And in fact, there was a driver in the car. So Mark Rober, was also talking about whether or not he, as the driver, thinks he could have avoided it, based on using his eyes.
But how do you fool a system? Like, you have a dummy sitting there, and then next to the dummy, you put these giant lights, huge lights aiming out at the road to fool the car so that you don't see the dummy in the road. It's so bright that the cameras get blown out. So that was one of the tests. Another was you ever seen the movies how they'll turn on the rain, start pouring rain? You'll have a rain machine that just turns into a major rainstorm.
Like on a movie set?
Like on a movie set, yeah. They had gear like that, only really, really intense rain, so much so you couldn't see the dummy through the amount of water that was being poured. So that was another test. Another was the Wile E. Coyote approach, which was kind of fun. You have a scene of the road. Well, imagine that you have a giant mirror, and you put the mirror in position on the road, and it looked like the road continues forever. Only instead of a mirror, it's a painting of the road.
It's a big like billboard-sized mural that makes a life-size depiction of the road. So the cameras see what looks like a road, even though it's a styrofoam wall with a picture of a road.
Yeah, right.
In the movies, they would paint these scenes. They would have a movie stage, and then they paint the scenes. And that's called a trompe-l'oeil, where they actually paint the sides of the scene. It looks like you're in the Midwest or someplace, but it's all painted on the sides, and they just have a stage in front of you, and they film them that way.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, how about if we just kind of create the suspense, but I want to go to a break before it gets too much later. Would that be okay?
All right, let's go to a break, and we'll tell you the results of this Tesla versus Waymo LiDAR system, because Teslas don't use LiDAR.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back. Thanks, everybody.
Businesses, are you looking to connect with new customers and find fabulous new employees? The Pajaro Valley Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture's Business Expo and Job Fair is Thursday, April 10th from 4 until 7 at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Each year, businesses gain new customers at the expo, and now you can find great new employees too. Register today on Eventbrite or go to PajaroValleyChamber.com. We'll see you April 10th at the expo. Don't forget to register today at PajaroValleyChamber.com.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook Outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook Outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Time to eat. and talk business. Chef Ben here from the Back Nine Grill and Bar, inviting you to talk business over a leisurely lunch or a formal dinner or maybe a quick libation. The Back Nine is the easiest place to get to in Santa Cruz County. Easy off the Pasatiempo exit with ample parking and great food. The Back Nine is the place to meet for business and great food. Time to eat and talk business. See you at the Nine.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Donate your car and help veterans and their families. Yes, one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program and we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate most cars, trucks, or SUVs in most conditions. The proceeds raised goes to help active military, veterans, and their families. And you get a tax deduction. Operators are standing by. Here's the number.
800-640-9509. Again, that's 800-640-9509.
Okay, we're back. We are back. Okay, the results of the Tesla versus LiDAR Waymo type machines. Well, I think you should see the video. Number one, it's really fun to watch. Mark Rober's
Yeah, do you have a link on the
I do. I have,
site?
Yes,
I have a link on the suit.
I'm watching it now.
Isn't that cool?
It's amazing how many times the dummy gets hit.
Well, the risk of spoiling the video for you. Well, the Tesla, let's just say, it puts a cartoonishly large hole in the wall after the autopilot. The Tesla autopilot plows right through the thing at about 40 miles an hour. So the Wile E. Coyote test failed.
Yeah, definitely clutch your pearls here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's heart-wrenching to watch
It
the
is.
car just plow into this cute little dummy.
Well, Tesla's autopilot did fine if there was just a dummy out there on the middle of the road and it was normal conditions. It was fine. They stopped fine with that.
Yes. Well, there are 6 different tests that they did.
Yeah,
and
that's right. That's one of them.
Tesla failed, 3 of them?
Yeah. Dummy that runs out in front of the car at the last minute, it passed that one. It was good.
Yeah, it stopped in case of a child like on a skateboard coming out suddenly and it missed the kid on the skateboard.
That's right. That's
5
right.
seconds
And
to spare.
a dummy that is obscured by a blindingly bright lights, really bright lights, it stopped for that.
Yeah, like a truck coming at you on a dark road on a dark night.
But alas, autonomous system sent a fake kid right over the bumper when it was hidden by a fog.
Yeah,
and then
fog and heavy rain. They fooled the cameras. It didn't know that there was a real human being on the other side. Of course, it was a dummy human being.
Yeah.
Not a real.
I mean, even if you were human, you would have a tough time in the fog or the
Yes.
rain.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the point.
We do bad then too.
Cameras and humans are definitely on par with each other.
But
as far
if
as
I
this
put
goes.
up a big photograph of a clear road ahead of you, you'd probably stop. Though you probably, well, the Tesla was fooled by that because it didn't see the edges of the painting. You know, even though it's a big painting of a realistic road scene.
Yeah, it seemed like it was some big
You'd
mylar.
see the corners, right? In real life, your vision system would see that. And for whatever reason, that photorealistic recreation of the road in front of you, the Tesla got fooled by it, but not the
And
LiDAR.
thus, there are potential billboards that could fool an autonomous car if it was only using cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it proved.
But
And
the billboard has to be in the middle of the road, though.
Yeah,
here,
middle of
you
the
know,
road, unlikely, right?
the
Unlikely,
whole conversation
real.
is about Tesla when
Can-
really what was so fascinating is that the
Candid
LiDAR
camera for Tesla cars, you know.
the LiDAR camera was working so much better because to the LiDAR, it saw the billboard as a block. You know, it stopped because it didn't register the picture, it registered the obstacle. Same thing in
Yeah,
the
I guess so, yeah.
in the fog and the heavy rain. Did they both blow that? I think they both lost that one, right? The heavy rain was confusing to the LiDAR.
Heavy rain.
Right. Anyway, it was a really, Mark Rober is just so entertaining, and you cringe right along with him as you watch the autonomous cars fail their test.
Yeah,
but
you
it's
want
so hilarious.
You want the Tesla to do well.
Yeah.
You do,
want
unless you're
all the
rooting against
autonomous
Tesla,
cars
but
to do well.
yeah, you would. But you know, come on, guys, I want my driver.
Anyway, so
I'm
it looks
getting
like
older.
at this
I need a
point,
driver.
the Waymo taxis are probably a little more reliable with their LiDAR than the Tesla autonomous cars.
That was a big debate years ago. Elon was against LiDAR. He thought it was unwieldy and expensive and unnecessary. and that you can drive autonomously with just regular cameras.
He made that point.
Made that decision.
Well, it seems like the obvious answer is use both.
At this point, I think the LiDAR's gotten cheap enough that it...
Well, the problem is, if you look at these Waymo taxis that are driving down my street here,
Yeah.
there is so much equipment on them. They've got all these things that are spinning on the top, on the sides. It's got microwave, it's got radar, it's got LiDAR. And to put that on another car, it costs more than the car itself for a taxi.
But are they using only LiDAR? Maybe they're making the same mistake in the other direction, because the only positioned LiDAR for these tests was in the front of the car. It was only looking directly for obstacles in the road. It wasn't trying to navigate or know what was around it. It was really just looking for avoidable obstacles. So maybe what we need is a hybrid of the two systems.
Yeah, well, LiDAR itself is kind of costly, is what I'm saying. So to retrofit another car, you'd have to put a whole bunch of gadgets on it with this LiDAR, and it would cost more than the car itself just to have it a robo-taxi. While you could take a Tesla as it is, driving off the lot, and you just have AI and their cameras that are on it, and it learned from all these traffic incidences, millions of miles of driving, that it knows what to see like a human. So that was the idea.
Yeah. Well, the point is, though, that there are situations where the visual system is not enough, and that's avoidable. And that's really the insight here, is that some of these situations could be handled better by LiDAR.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a
we'll
good
see
story.
how it all works. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Elon is saying that 10 years from now, we're going to have 80% of all miles driven are going to be in autonomous cars. So, we're going to see it in our lifetimes. We're going to watch people
it's happening.
People turn their steering wheels over to the machines.
So it could be a sign. It could be a sign that LiDAR is going to become part of the Tesla stuff, because LiDAR is going to get cheap. I really like Mark Roba's next piece on it, where he takes his portable LiDAR gadget, which is now so small that you can put it in front of your stomach, or you can put it under your coat. It look like you have a large boob.
Oh, yes.
He took it to Disneyland, and he always, since he was 14, wanted to know exactly how the track went inside Space Mountain. Because it's such a tight little area. How in the world did they get all those that whole experience in such a small space? So he brought it on board, his ride to Space Mountain, and mapped out with LiDAR a 3D model of the roller coaster tracks in there. And it's really a cool piece.
Ooh,
Same piece
he's
as-
such a good bad boy.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He was worried about getting caught carrying it into Disneyland, because they have very strict security these days trying to get into
he
the
is
park.
so funny. He's talking about all the ways he was defeating the security and pointing out the security people that are pretending to be tourists. And, he's really like a 14-year-old who is just not going to get caught.
Yeah, exactly. So Mark Rober, he's a hoot.
Oh, we're big fans.
Yeah.
We really love him. And of course, for people who are not familiar with him, his first claim to fame that got him on our radar was his glitter bombs, which was something he designed.
Well, yeah,
to
the Squirrel Olympics.
defeat-
The
well,
the
and
squirrel-
that led
yeah.
to the Squirrel Olympics for us. Once he was on our radar, you just become a fan of. He's so creative, and he was in love with squirrels, and he came up with the Squirrel Olympics, all these ways to
training your squirrels
prevent
to
squirrels in the
the
yard
backyard,
from
uh-huh,
getting
to-
the nuts. But if they were smart enough to get to the nuts, then they got a treasure trove. It's just adorable. His sense of humor is so cute. Yeah.
Or the people that were breaking in cars in San Francisco in front of his house.
That was the
that's-
glitter bombs. He came up with the
that was
glitter bombs.
amazing.
With
That
the-
was ingenious.
with the
yeah.
cell phones capturing the thief
Capturing the thief.
inside
And
the glitter bomb.
that's right. And as they stole the package and went off with it, at some point it would explode in their car and just put glitter everywhere, which was adorable.
And
then
skunk smells too, I believe.
Then
in the
later
later
it was-
versions, it was stink like skunk, like something you can't remove. And he actually was involved with his trackable cameras as fake packages. He busted a criminal mail order ring that was out of India that was somehow involved in some kind of, I don't quite remember the details now, but I know that they busted some fraudulent telemarketing networks in India.
Yeah, that's right. He's been in engineering. He makes engineering super fun.
Yeah,
I think
he
that's
does.
the bottom line.
He does.
Let me just play a moment of his voice so you can recognize. You might hear him. Okay, you might recognize this.
While LiDAR proved itself the superior car technology, could it actually deliver on the dream of 14-year-old Mark Rober and map out Space Mountain well enough for me to make a scaled 3D printed model? And after 30 years of waiting, I'm happy to report, for the first time ever, this is what the Space Mountain track actually looks like.
Okay. And so that's a good reason to watch the YouTube movie.
And that link is on YouTube, but you can get to it from drfutureshow.com on our links page for March 18th.
Can you fool a self-driving car is the name of the piece. And speaking of companies that nearby that we know and love, there's new info about Joby
Aviation. We're
Yes.
so proud of them, our local startup aviation company.
Yeah. They've moved forward a few more inches with a new route that they will be doing in teamwork with Virgin Atlantic.
All right. Another favorite. Sir Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic has been very disappointing with their stock over the
Yeah,
years.
but we're not going to go there right now. We're going to go to Joby Aviation,
Yes.
which plans a short-range flights in the UK in partnership with Virgin Atlantic, using airplane hubs in London Heathrow and Manchester airports.
Yeah.
London Heathrow and Manchester.
And so this is what Joby's doing is they've got these wonderful drone autonomous vehicles that can handle 2 to 4 passengers. And these drones now are in the business of getting private spaceports or drone ports in various airports for people who want to do premium executive transport in the city, short
I think
distances.
they're calling them vertiports.
Vertiports. And they'll be competing with high-end helicopter pilots.
So these will be on top of buildings, like high rises, right? They have a heliport.
Yeah,
instead they have
wherever helicopters fly, these guys can go too. And they're creating special ones just for them because they need less space than a helicopter. So the designs can be a little smaller.
Sure.
They're a little craft, 4 passengers and the pilot, but they can go like 100 miles at about 200 miles an hour. So they're looking at short drops. In this case, it's a 10-minute flight time, which would, in crowded traffic in a big city like London, would take you an hour and a half. So they're getting into that industry. And that's great. There and in Dubai, that they're also doing a vertiport. So this is a breakthrough into London. Local company, Joby. Congratulations on that.
Yeah. Isn't Toyota funding part of Joby also?
That's right. Yeah, their Toyotas put.
So I would think they would be in Tokyo also, you would think.
You would think. You wonder about that. Why aren't they in Tokyo?
Well, we don't know. I mean, they started in Dubai. I mean, maybe they are talking
London.
to Tokyo too. It's just a rollout.
Why aren't they in San Francisco yet? You know,
Yeah. Well, they probably need proof of concept to really secure the long-term licensing that they need.
I suspect a lot of it has to do with licensing and legislation, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, FAA regulations.
Sure. Yeah, VTOLs.
But it's interesting because the eVTOL is a cottage industry. It was even hotter 10 years ago. It was the next big thing in
Drones.
tech.
Right.
With the rise of drones.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking longer than we expected. But then doesn't the whole idea of flying cars take a longer time than we ever expected?
Absolutely.
Generation like fusion power, another big one.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, here we were in 1992 going to our Mahler stockholders meetings, waiting for the first drone autonomous flight, vertical takeoff and landing spaceship. And since then, drones have become a reality. They're definitely a huge shaper of modern transportation culture and war culture.
Yeah, wars are being radically changed by that for sure.
Yeah.
But then it does bring up, as you mentioned earlier, the experiments with Virgin Galactic, that would be normal by now for us to have regular flights to space for tourism. Space tourism.
We would think so. Like 2004 is when the pilots from Virgin Galactic won the X Prize for being the first design for a spacecraft that could go to space and come back and do it again within a week. And so that was well before Elon Musk was able to land a rocket afterwards. So 2004 is when it looked like Virgin Galactic was really ahead of everybody on that with Burt Rutan. And then they had some setbacks where they lost a pilot in one of their missions. So even though they sold a bunch of seats on their Virgin Galactic aircraft, and that funded
Well, I
the
think
early
they just didn't
development.
go high enough. I think that was the main thing.
That wasn't high enough?
55 miles as opposed to 65. You wanted to reach the Kármán line to really be in space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's one thing. I don't think it's the only thing. But
Well, but then they changed their model so
Yeah.
that their model was, no, we're not necessarily going to go to space and back. We're not going to just do space tourism. We're going to do a new kind of aviation where instead of expending all kinds of fuel in the atmosphere, we're going to try and go up to space and then land again, having used less fuel to navigate the friction. And so this is kind of what the futurist space industry, aviation industry is aiming for.
Yeah.
And so we'll just see how it all unfolds.
yes, we will.
These are the futurists trying to reinvent technology.
Which one? In this case, Joby's, I think, has got a good shot at really going somewhere with these very pragmatic uses, flying between airport hubs.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay,
another
now-
great announcement from Joby.
Yeah.
They've got Dubai. Now they've got Europe.
In the final moments here, I just wanted to cover a little bit about Doge because it is kind of in our sector of tech. I'll play a clip from a new Doge update, a full supercut.
A supercut
Supercut,
where
we're gonna
Elon and
join them in
Ted
the middle.
Cruz were having a little meeting.
Yeah,
and
Ted
talking
Cruz
about
getting a download on some of
waste
what
and
was
fraud.
going on.
One of the biggest scam fraud holes we've uncovered, which is really crazy, is that the government can give money to a so-called nonprofit with very few controls, and then there's no auditing subsequently of that nonprofit. So there's no. So this is where, with the 1.9 billion to Stacey Abrams, they then give themselves extremely lavish, like insane salaries, expense everything to the nonprofit. Buy jets and homes and all sorts of things. And this is happening at scale. It's not just one or two. We're seeing this everywhere. You may think that that the government computers all talk to each other, they synchronize, they add up what funds are going somewhere, and it's coherent. And that the numbers, for example, that you're presented as a senator are actually the real numbers. One would think. They're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're not totally wrong, but they're probably off by 5% or 10% in some cases. So I call a magic money computer any computer which can just make money out of thin air. That's magic money. It just issues payments. They're mostly a treasury. Some are, but there's some at HHS, there's one or two at state, there's some at DOD. I think we found now 14 magic money computers.
14, okay.
They just send money out of nothing. Well, the government is run by computers. So you've got essentially several hundred computers that effectively run the government. So when somebody, even when the president issues an executive order, that's got to go through a whole bunch of people until ultimately it is implemented at a computer somewhere. And if you want to know what the situation is with the accounting and you're trying to reconcile accounting and get rid of waste and fraud, you must be able to analyze the computer databases. Otherwise, you can't figure it out. Because all you're doing is asking a human who will then ask another human, and finally usually ask some contractor who will ask another contractor to do a query on the computer.
Wow.
Okay, that's a little bit from the new Doge update.
Okay. The halls of Doge at the Ted Cruz podcast, which we got a supercut from Matt Posius. And he does Tesla stock and money analysis.
So
he's
how could you
an Elon watcher?
How could you be against releasing information like that?
Well, I think you're against releasing information if you feel that it's going to affect your pocketbook. And if you feel like they're coming after you, and if you feel like they don't know what they're doing and they're going to harm you and there's nothing you can do about it.
So it's like uncovering you. Yeah, you don't want to be exposed.
And I think one of the titles of this article is that Elon makes the case that there's about 80% waste compared to 20% fraud in the misuse of government funds that he's finding, which is less than maybe 1 to 5% of the government total budget. He's in the margin of the money that is being spent, and he's looking for savings with the purpose of making sure that America doesn't get bankrupted and get foreclosed on because we're not paying our bills.
Yeah.
So they're just really doing what businesses do, try and save money where you can and try and identify where those savings are possible. We're in such a politicized information culture that they've decided before they hear the news who they believe. That is unfortunate because people like us, we go direct to the source. We listen to the individuals involved and we interpret what they say. And a lot of people don't go to the original source. They go to some interpreter of that source, like CBS or NBC or...
Yeah. So you think the AIs are in favor of what Doge is doing?
They probably don't know what Doge is doing. That's
'Cause they're
my
not up to
guess.
date.
Yeah.
What about you, Bobby?
It's the first time that there's been a deep audit in these systems. And, once these programs are enacted, sometimes who turns them off? Like, who turns off this money machine, magic money machine?
14 of them.
That keeps on running.
Well, see, I think they don't get turned off. I think that they get reprogrammed so that they conform with well-known accounting protocols so that money is tracked from the time that it's extracted from the taxpayers to the time that it is appropriated for spending by the government to the time that is received by the person who's supposed to get it. Like, you just need good accounting procedures.
More
you know?
evidence it's all a simulation, if you ask me.
And you know what? Guess what time
What?
it is? Look how close we
Oh,
are. We are
wow.
so close.
Ugh.
to
30
saying
seconds.
Goodbye for the week.
Yeah, right. Right. Well,
So-
it's good to have you today. Thanks for sticking with us through all these fun stories.
Yeah,
And,
great stories.
Just opening up to the sun now. It looks like we're going to get outside today and enjoy the day. So I suggest
Yeah.
you do the same. Thank you, Bobby, for being there.
Thank you. And son, I look forward to your birthday party.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fun to see you. I'm
Son's
turning
birthday.
64 on
Yay.
Friday. It's going to be fun. Have a great future now, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Uh-huh. There we go.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun, everybody.
That
I really
was.
enjoyed that
Yeah.
today.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.